Okay, good morning again for all those who joined after my first words. I think we can start now. Welcome everybody for joining our DDoS fighting workshop that we are organizing today. So what's on the program? We have 5 presentations that will look at different aspects of DOS attacks and give you ideas on how to prepare your defenses against these attacks. Before starting, a few housekeeping words. Please use the WebEx Q&A pane to ask your questions during the presentations. Our presenters will answer them at the end. And after the 5 presentations, there is some time left for a discussion session. Stay tuned until then, and we'll answer more general questions about the topics of today all together. So let me start by saying a few words about the terms we're using today, specifically DOS or DDoS. First, a DDoS attack needs a service. So if you worry about DDoS attacks, start looking at your services. Which services do you provide? Where do you provide them from? On-premise, your own data center, or are they hosted at a service provider or even cloud-based? That's something that you need to assess to know what you are talking about on the service that you want to protect. And then we are discussing about denial of service. That means your service is not available to your end users. So what is the importance of the services? How critical are they? What will be the impact on your business if the services are not available for 1 hour, or even for 6 hours, or for a day? These are all questions you should ask yourself in a risk-based analysis phase, which is the basis to a good cybersecurity strategy in general and your DDoS defense in particular. And when a denial of service attack is called distributed, then most people mean the volume-based attack type that tries to overload your network with useless connection attempts and network flooding. But not all attacks are volume-based. If you are not well protected, it's very easy to overload your server or your application with a low volume but a large number of requests. So that's something that you also need to consider. This here is a slide that I have shown you 2 years ago during the Luxembourg Internet Days Lunar Conference. This is still very relevant, but today, and specifically since February 24, there is some additional elements to consider. Specifically, since then, DDoS has shifted to become an element of cyber warfare in support of political positions of the parties involved in a real war. This shift has changed the risk landscape. It means that more organizations can easily become targets of attacks. Public support, your public support for one of the parties is definitely enough to single you out as an attack target. But it's easier. Simply your compliance with a political decision can be enough to make you a target. Now, with this said, let's go on to, I need to remind you that Luxembourg Internet Days this year on November 15 and 16, we have a full day that is dedicated to the DDoS topic. So remark those 2 dates, November 15, November 16. Watch for our invitation going out, and please join us for, keep fingers crossed, a physical presence event at the Chamber of Commerce. Now I'm really done, and with this all said, let's hand over to our first presenter, who is Yannick DOYEN of Post Luxembourg. Yannick, up to you.
Thank you, Michel, for this very good introduction. I will just now share my screen. Up. Hope everybody can see it now. So, let me start. I'm working for Post since now some years. And today I will talk about DDoS protection and how you can protect your infrastructure and how Post can help you. In fact, every infrastructure is different. That's why you should know the strengths and the weakness of yours to be able to put the security cursor at the right level. Of course, depending the risk you can accept. Here is the first step to know how you can improve or create, if it's not already done, your DOS or DDoS attack protection. Following are some highlight best practice. Of course, you can have some other one, but at least it's a good start. Monitoring your network continually. In fact, this is beneficial to identify normal traffic patterns and critical to early detection and mitigation. Run tests to simulate DDoS attacks. This will help assess risk, exposure vulnerabilities, and train employees in cybersecurity. Create a protection plan. This consists to create checklist, form a response team, define the response parameters, and also deploy protection. Identify critical systems and normal traffic patterns. The former helps in planning protection and the latter helps in the early detection of threats. And last but not least, it's DDoS protection measures by ISP. Post can, of course, support you in dealing with all these tasks, and I will now detail only some of them. This representation coming from Radware, it's a good start, even if all kinds of security threats are not represented. But before talking about customer protection, you should know how your provider is able to protect himself against DDoS attack. That's why I will explain now how Post manage it at backbone level. So based on our international backbone, Post have multiple points of connectivity for huge 100 gig pipes. And we are also well connected to major European internet exchange point. Our capacity planning permits to deal with spikes of traffic. For example, it was the case at the beginning of COVID-19 crisis with the increase of telework. At the backbone level, we also have a protection plan, and we can activate on demand or automatically multiple protection mechanisms. The first one is, of course, the utilization of our scrubbing center, but we can also use blackhauling locally or remote from our upstream or IXP. And we can also, if needed, use access list. Also, since the beginning of the year, we now use RPKI validator to check and to avoid the spoofing of IPv4 and IPv6 prefixes inside our network. Since 2019, we also publish every month some statistics about DDoS attack. Of course, it's only some of them, but you can have a look at the website ICT Experts Luxembourg to check every month. At this stage, you should be a bit more confident with your provider, as you know, he is able to protect the backbone. And we can have now a look at the customer level. At Post, we offer different level of protection eligible only for corporate internet connectivity. The first level is called DDoS Mitigation Traffic Protect, also known as MTP. The second one is called Mitigation Inline. For those one, it's based on backbone appliance, and these appliances are shared with other customers. The third level, it's called Mitigation Inline on-premise. But as we have not so much time today, we will compare only the MTP and the inline. Let's have a look deeper in detail. So for MTP to the left, under normal condition, customers' internet traffic will follow the normal transmission path through the internet post backbone. DDoS protection mechanisms are not active at this time. The visibility on the traffic is made from a sample of one packet out of 1,000. Traffic thresholds are predefined according to the customer traffic patterns after a learning base of 7 days. When crossing the threshold, alerts are generated to report traffic anomalies to the SOC. We need a minimum of 4 minutes for alert detection in this case. Based on the alert criticality and occurrence, the SOC will trigger the mitigation. Traffic is redirected to the scrubbing center with a specific BGP announcement, and protection are applied. After the DDoS attack ends, customer traffic returns to its normal route, and SOC will transmit a DDoS attack report to the customer. For inline, customer internet traffic is always going through the scrubber inline. That's the real difference. Protection mechanisms are always on. That's why in this case, we don't need anymore to do some sampling. We have the full view of the traffic. This solution is of course also monitored by our SOC, and it's more reactive and accurate for the customer. If the volume of the attack is too high for the scrubber inline, it can ask the scrubbing center to mitigate at its level. Now, at this stage, it's up to the customer to decide which kind of reactivity and protection he wants. Now you have a protection on your internet pipe. That's a good start, but Post can also support to improve it. We can offer a lot of security managed services. We can also support for on-premise installation with hardware like firewall, load balancer, etc. But we have also very good services for the SOC. And we will have now a look at the SOC offer. So first of all, what is a SOC as a service? It's a mature and proactive approach that monitors and detects security incidents to secure organization and business activities. One of the key elements in protecting against and dealing with cyber attacks is the ever-changing landscape of cyber security. The detection, which is at the heart of the solutions, combines logs, network traffic, and relevant business data to produce relevant and in-depth intelligence about today's vulnerabilities and tomorrow's threats that may affect your business. Of course, to be eligible at this offer, the customer should be able to send the logs. What is the advantages of the SOX and also the SOX as a service at Post? First of all, it's a managed service from Post, because we know that today all companies have not the structure to be able to manage all these kind of security events. Post monitors this 24/7. We have the flexibility for the platform. That means we can offer cloud-based or dedicated platform. The customer will have also an access to KPIs through a dashboard. We are also able to develop personalized correlation rules, and we can propose variables, logs, storage times, depending the needs of the customer. And the customer could also have access to the logs, enabling you making further investigation. At the end, we can also customize reports, adapt to the needs of the customer. Now, if we summarize, you have a protection on your internet pipe. You are also able to detect intrusion with the SOC services. And the next step is to know how you can deal with all this information. That's why we have a Post Cyberforce department with some solution to help the customer with security incident response. The CCIRT Post Cyberforce helps teams inside the constituency having an incident response capability to handle the technical and organizational aspect of incidents. In particular, it will provide assistance or advice with the respect of the following aspect of incident management. The main activity of Post CCIRT is to provide reactive services, and at Post, this is called Cyber SOS. We can have 3 main tasks for the reactive services. So the first one in the incident triage, it consists of the evaluation of the event reported, identification of incidents from event, identification of fulfillment to trigger this famous critical security incident response plan. After that, we also take care about incident coordination. And this consists of determining the root cause of the incident, facilitate contact with other entities, making report for the customer, communication inside and outside the constituency, and ensuring adequate threats, sharing information to satisfy regulatory or legal obligation if needed. The first task is the incident resolution, and based on the incident type, a set of resolution action could be applied, like collecting evidence before resolution operation, eradicating the threat from the system affected, assistance by covering systems and network, and so on and so on. So the service is built for different level of coverage defined by attacks complexity. This allows the customer to subscribe to the accurate services level based on the business risk exposures assessment. And of course, we always need to do a perimeter analysis in order to establish an offer. Now, why you should choose Post? for me, the best argument today is the fact that we have our teams located in Luxembourg, and we have now more than 50 Cyberforce experts. Our DDoS solution is also local, and we do not redirect any traffic out of Luxembourg. We are also ISO and CSSF certified, and we operate a high level of expertise since many years with strong collaboration of trust partners. That's all from my side. Thank you for your attention, and I'm available in the chat if you have some question.
Thank you very much, Yannick. Thank you for that very detailed presentation of the services that Post can offer. Very good. I don't see any questions in the Q&A currently. So as a reminder to all participants, if you have questions for the presenters, please ask them in the Q&A pane, and that you can open, if I'm not mistaken, at the lower right corner of your WebEx window, where you have the 3 dots, and there you can open additional panes, and you will see then the Q&A. Good. So currently no questions, therefore I propose that we continue with the next session. Next up is Jan THIELEMANS of the company Arcadiz, and Jan will talk about automation. To respond to DDoS attacks, you need to be aware that something is happening, and you need to know exactly what is going on. This is where automation and automated detection kicks in, and that's what Jan is going to talk to us about. Jan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michel. Hi, everybody. My name is Jan THIELEMANS from Arcadiz in Belgium, and let me introduce you a little bit towards the practical approach towards automation. So the first slide is a little bit about our company. We are a local operator in 3 countries, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Holland, active since 1999. And our baseline, in fact, is to be an integrator of operator services. We have a backbone of about 3,000 kilometers, mostly private, and we deliver dedicated, not shared solutions. Point of view certification, we are also in security field, of course. And the good news about our company is that we stay focused on specific tailor-made solutions, and we offer human-type help desks and human-type after-sales. So what kind of services do we deliver? Mostly, in general, we can say that we deliver high-speed, low latency connectivity, and that we do inside the data center, between the data center, towards the company's headquarters, and towards the cloud, of course. So in Luxembourg, for the moment, there are no real big scrubbing centers. And I mean with that, no scrubbing centers who can pull off terabits of mitigation needs. So therefore, once the attack is really big, most people should pay attention and reroute their traffic towards a neighboring country. The good news is there are a relatively low number of attacks in Luxembourg for the moment, but they are increasing. And in fact, what can be protected is infrastructure. That's what we call layer 3 and layer 4 protection, or applications, and that's what we call up to layer 7 protection. What are the typical pains? As Yannick discussed already this morning, there are a lot of possibilities, and each of these possibilities will cover up a type of pains. So the first pain most customers have is the threat to business continuity. A second one is that it violates the availability of your services. And another one, which is in top 3, is to obfuscate other types of attacks. Because yeah, your technical team is busy with this kind of attack, and in the meantime, bad guys will try to do other stuff on your network. What are the different methods they use? Essentially, there are three big flavors of methods. One is a volume-based attack. Another one mostly used is protocol or application attacks. There are different hardware suppliers to deliver all these kind of services, but what should we do? We should make sure that we end up in a situation whereby we are able to mitigate the part which is needed. So how do we do that? There are essentially two types of services in the mitigation service arena. One of them is on demand, the other one is always on technologies. The risk the customer, the enterprise customer can have is that there is a potential vendor lock-in. Most of the providers have a visibility, but they don't give the visibility to the customer during peacetime. Secondly, there are also delays between the moment that the detection has started and that the detection is propagated through the networks. So for people who are working on demand, there is definitely a delay to see that there is an attack started. And then you have to tell to all the routers in the world, hey, from now on it has to be rerouted to a scrubbing center. And that will take also some time, around 2 minutes maximum for a worldwide reroute. Now, for people who are in the always-on method, it's not said that the scrubbing is always active, because that would cost too much on the supplier to deliver. So most suppliers of services, they run the always-on through their NetFlow servers, but they don't run the traffic through the mitigation hardware devices. Then there is still an activation on the filters, and that activation will take some time. Here we're talking order of magnitude seconds, yeah, in both technologies. Although with the detection delay, we're talking more or less 2 minutes for reroute and detection, yeah. So where is the difference as well? That is that in the always on, you have at all times a long route outside Luxembourg, as well during peacetime as wartime. In the other scenario, you can have during peacetime very short latencies, and you have only during the attack a larger delay to get there. Since we were going to talk about the approach, I can give you the way we do this. Arcadiz will detect the needs and do a complete analyze requirements of the customer. In the second phase, we try to make sure that there is a good use case discussion what the customer really wants in terms of which problem to mitigate. In the third phase, our architectural people will come up with a proposal, and of course, then the customer will start on the implementation of this decision. Where do we make a difference in the operational way of working? So essentially today, I will not go into detail each of the details of how DDoS works and the underlying methods that will other speakers do. We will talk today about how we're going to automate the things which make the difference. We have a flow-based engine, and that has some intelligence. It's based on NetFlow Analyzer, so it takes also a sample of the data of the routers, but we can do with that an instant triggering. So different methodologies are at our disposal. Black holing, for instance, a BGP flow spec. But the good news about the Kentic services is that there are a lot of integrations which are really off the shelf. So there is no hocus pocus to be done to get the thing solved. These include services like Cloudflare, Redware 18, but also Arcadiz made automation for Akamai services and for F5 services. So there are a lot of possible integrations here. What can we do also? We can do it from any cloud mitigation service supplier. Any BGP infrastructure And this solution also works for people who are multi-homed with multiple IP providers. This gives you a great deal of flexibility and of visibility, of course. Customer will also get a portal on which he can see all the details. And the good news is this can be done as well during peacetime as during wartime. What is the Arcadiz way of working? So we have a local NOC. Local means Benelux. We have a human approach. We do a synchronization during the attack with the SOC. And so the SOC for us, it's not only an automated computer-based system, but it's automated system combined with human intelligence for longer attacks whereby the vector changes during the attack. It's the human that can make a difference to quicker mitigate the systems. We do this on a direct wired system, so we do no GRE, no VPN, no tunnels. Yeah? We only reroute these elements of the /24 which are under attack. And thanks to that, our way of working makes sure that the latency is very good. The customer has a visibility at all times. He can speak with our engineering during the attack, and after the attack, there will be a post-intervention report of the attack itself. Since we are a tailor-made kind company, we also offer directive always-on solutions, which means that the ingress, and for certain applications it can be interesting, the ingress will go over the mitigation center, but the egress will go over the local ISP or the local peering partner, which makes sure that your latency moves up. So to conclude, where are the Arcadiz advantages? We are specifically here to do the integration and the automation. We have a direct wiring, so you don't have troubles with MCTCP parameters. The number one point is the detection is completely independent from the chosen DDoS mitigation provider. We deliver services in the FLAP region, so Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, and Paris. The customer has access to flow analysis as well during peace as wartime. So in fact, Arcadiz can offer the best of both worlds in this case. Some reference fields we are in. We are active in small school projects, in the media sector, banking, but also in the local and regional cloud sector. So if there are any questions, I will make some time for it.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you very much for this view from a local actor in the DDoS defense space. Thank you very much for that. So I don't directly see any questions. Let me see. Okay, there's some chat going on, but that's not a question. All right, then I would propose that we continue with the next topic. So now we had a more local view from Jan, but what if your customers are not local, but located globally? How can you make sure that your services can be reached under best conditions from everywhere? Let's look at how Cloudflare, a global provider of CDNs, so content distribution network, and other services, how Cloudflare can help.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to talk to you today about how to implement DDoS protection for your entire network using Cloudflare Magic Transit. Cloudflare's vision for DDoS protection is really simple. We want to make downtime and disruptions a thing of the past through intelligent protection, visibility, and control for our customers of any size or technical sophistication, or on any plan to keep their internet properties secure and fast. And in order to do that, Cloudflare offers DDoS protection at every layer of the OSI stack, starting with our DDoS protection for web applications, which is included for all websites hosted behind Cloudflare. We also offer protection products at layer 4 and layer 3 using Cloudflare Spectrum and Cloudflare Magic Transit, which is what we're going to talk about today. In a nutshell, Cloudflare Magic Transit puts our battle-tested network in front of your network and sitting between the internet and your network. And as a result, we're able to apply near instant DDoS protection, stop malicious traffic before it comes anywhere close to your network, give you additional IP firewall controls, and even improve your network performance. This is all done using the Cloudflare Global Network, which spans over 250 cities in over 100 countries across the globe. This is one of the most densely connected networks in the world, with direct peering connections to over 10,000 different networks, including ISPs, cloud providers, and many large enterprise networks. And together, this amounts to about 121 terabits per second of network edge capacity, which is orders of magnitude larger than any DDoS attack we've ever seen. And this provides effective protection for all kinds of attacks that are coming towards your network. So how is Cloudflare different, and how do we do this? So we take a more modern approach to DDoS mitigation. If you look at the way DDoS mitigation has been done to date, a lot of organizations take the scrubbing center approach. So if you look at the history of DDoS, we started off by implementing DDoS controls on firewalls. Then we realized we were not enough. Then we moved to an appliance world where there were dedicated appliances that could process and analyze and stop traffic at wire speed. But then DDoS attacks got bigger and bigger and more volumetric in nature. So we started doing things in the cloud. And in order to do that, we built scrubbing centers, dedicated data centers that are able to process large amounts of traffic and analyze traffic and stop DDoS attacks. But the problem with this approach is these scrubbing centers are only in a few locations around the world. And if you don't happen to be close to them, your traffic has to be rerouted all the way through the internet to one of these scrubbing center locations. And that always introduces additional latency. Not only that, it creates choke points for network traffic. So you're actually taking traffic that would have flowed all over the internet, you're funneling into these distinct choke points. And so it's just not an ideal situation. It actually creates choke points, creates potential for more problems, and also impairs application performance because of the additional latency that got introduced in the process. So how does Cloudflare do this, and how do we do it differently? So we built a more modern architecture where we built every service to be capable of running in every data center in all of our locations around the world. And as a result, we can use the entire Cloudflare network edge, all the data centers, every single location to fight DDoS attacks. And how do we do this? So the way Magic Transit works is we would take a customer's network prefixes, we'd onboard them. Of course, has to be a minimum /24 prefix. We'd onboard it onto the Cloudflare network. And when you choose, we can advertise those prefixes to the rest of the internet. And by doing that, we start attracting all the traffic that's destined for your networks into the Cloudflare network. Now, this includes legitimate users, real user traffic. This includes any malicious traffic that may be heading your way. And then right at the edge of the Cloudflare network, we apply DDoS protection filters. So we have services running there, which we'll talk about in a moment, that can intelligently analyze this traffic, look for DDoS patterns, look for known botnets, and then stop this traffic right at the edge, even before it enters the Cloudflare network. And then we have a connection between the Cloudflare network and your network using a number of ways. And then we deliver clean traffic to your network that has been scrubbed off any potential DDoS attacks. All of this filtering happens very, very far away from your infrastructure. And that way you can make sure that you don't face any collateral damage from volumetric attacks or small attacks. So how do we connect the Cloudflare network to our customer's network? Well, you really have three options. If you happen to be co-located in one of the data centers where we are, you have the ability to set up a physical connection between the locations, and you can You can set this up. This could be the physical circuit, fiber connection, and you can cross-connect directly into us. Or if you happen to be located with co-located with one of our partners like CoreSite, Console Connect, Equinix, Megaport, right, at about 1,600 locations around the world, you can set up a virtual connection through these partners between your network, between your data center and Cloudflare. And that gives you a little bit more control over performance, gives you some end-to-end guarantees on how that traffic is going to flow. But if you can't do that, or if you want to set up connectivity really quickly when you're under attack, for example, you can also use our Anycast GRE or Anycast IPsec tunnels over the internet. And this provides a really easy, quick way to set up connectivity between the Cloudflare network and your network. And because we use Anycast, there are no single points of failure. You get a lot of redundancy, at least on the Cloudflare side. And on your side, you can typically configure at least 2 or more edge router connections so that you have redundancy on your side as well. So these are great options to stand up connectivity between Cloudflare and your network really quickly and get the benefits of Magic Transit DDoS protection in a very short period of time. So how does all of this work under the hood? So if you look at one of our servers that are running on the edge, we have multiple systems that are constantly analyzing and looking for DDoS attacks. So the first system is what we call DOS-D, and this is the decentralized system that runs autonomously in each and every server around the Cloudflare network. And this is the same service that we're using to protect our own infrastructure as well. And it does 2 things. It analyzes traffic patterns, and it also applies the filtering rules. When it detects a pattern and it is a mitigation rule that needs to go into place, DOS-D is what would apply it. We also have a centralized system called, right now it's called Gatebot. We're going to replace it with something called DOS-D Core, which is a centralized version of DOS-D. And this is more of the centralized system that is pulling in aggregate data from all of our data centers and understanding patterns at a global level. And this is what it's used to detect sort of large distributed volumetric attacks. And the mitigation, when it finds one, it actually sends mitigation instructions to the edge of the network where malicious traffic can be stopped. We also have a service called FlowTrackD, which is a TCP state tracking mechanism. So in many implementations, for example, will only see traffic in the ingress direction. So by looking at the flows in only one direction, we can actually keep track of the TCP state machine and make more intelligent decisions about what might be potential SYN floods and so on. So FlowTrackD is another component that's available that's part of Cloudflare Magic Transit mitigation. And then last but not the least, we have Magic Firewall. So Magic Firewall is a full firewall as a service offering, which you can use to do rules-based filtering. It includes, of course, you can do the standard 5-tuple, but you can also add in things like IP threat list. You can do geo-blocking, you can do packet captures on the edge of the network. And this is another great functionality that you get along with Magic Transit. So again, this is a multi-tiered defense strategy. So making sure that you're always protected without much manual intervention, and you're only seeing clean traffic. I talked about how Magic Transit can also improve performance. So in addition to all of this, Magic Transit also includes something we call Argo smart routing for packets. And Argo can actually improve your network performance in many cases, and by as much as 10%. So how do we do this? So this is essentially telemetry-based routing, where we're keeping track of actual network performance metrics to a variety of paths through the network. And we keep track of what is the fastest path at any given time. And by doing that, we can make determinations of how to send your traffic, how to deliver it through the Cloudflare backbone in a more reliable manner, in a more secure manner, and at higher performance. In addition to all the DDoS protection and the performance improvements and the firewall controls, you also get analytics. So network analytics is built in as part of Magic Transit. And this really helps you simplify troubleshooting. You can investigate incidents, look at your traffic patterns, look at which source IPs you're getting attacked from, identify anomalies. So another great capability that's built into Magic Transit that you can take advantage of. And of course, we are recognized by some of the leading analyst firm for the strength of our DDoS mitigation solutions, including IDC, Gartner, and most recently Forrester. Forrester identifies as a leader in the latest Forrester wave for DDoS mitigation solutions that was published last year. But more than the analyst ratings, we are really proud of what our customers are able to do. So here's an example of a customer in Europe, Zalando, one of the leading online fashion platforms at annual revenues of over 8 billion. You can imagine how critical their online presence is. And last year, when the holiday shopping season was approaching, DDoS attacks were really gaining momentum and increasing in frequency. And this was a major risk for the business, not just for the network. And they needed a more proactive, a more robust network security solution that could protect their customer fulfillment operations so that, customers would get products on time and they'd actually be able to shop online and preserve revenue. And Zalando deployed Cloudflare Magic Transit to protect entire IP subnets from DDoS attacks. And they actually saw some improvement in network traffic performance as well. In addition to the DDoS protection, they got a lot of value of the analytics that they were seeing. They were able to see availability numbers for different hops, different inbound traffic patterns, and they're able to integrate all of that into their existing security tools. And on an average, we see about Magic Transit thwarting about 200 potential DDoS attacks every week. And this helps make sure that the service is available and the users have a best-in-class experience. And it really helps improve their productivity because the staff is no longer chasing DDoS attacks, reducing operational costs for them. And it's really freeing up their engineers to work on the customer experience and making the product better rather than chasing after these DDoS problems. And if that was a very, very quick summary of Cloudflare Magic Transit, if you would like to learn more, reach out to us and we're happy to give you a personalized demo at cloudflare.com/magic-transit. Feel free to reach out to us or we can walk you through how the solution works, how you can integrate it into your network, and what it can do for you. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at ameet@cloudflare.com. Happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you for having me and look forward to hearing from you.
So now let's come back to a local provider presenting in full life. Gilles Weber of THIELEMANS will present THIELEMANS anti-DDoS solution, but will also present a next generation solution solving some of the current challenges of the internet. Gilles, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michel, and good morning, everybody. Let me start sharing my presentation. So you should see my slides. Just a brief introduction on myself. I'm working for THIELEMANS now for a little bit more than 9 years, and I'm working in the Telecom Solutions Group. And there, my main focus is mainly on data networks, IP, and fixed voice. And to start, let me clarify the state of play, because in the slides you are going to see some slides speaking about Proximus, others are going to speak about THIELEMANS. Proximus is the operating company. And we keep using the two major brands which are known in Luxembourg. The first one is Tango for the consumer market and mainly the mobile network. And also on the other side, THIELEMANS for the enterprise market and the B2B activities. And there we are an established player for more than 40 years, a company of around 700 people in Luxembourg. And as you see on this slide, with a very complete offer of expertise, but we are going to dig into more details on the cybersecurity and on the telco part during this presentation. I'm not going to bore you with some statistics on the DDoS attacks and what's going on in the world. We have already touched on this. Just some points and highlights. Good news is that after the year of the pandemic, we saw a small decrease in the overall number of attacks worldwide. But that doesn't mean that the risk is no longer there. Attackers, they haven't halted their operations. Everything continues as before. We see some shifts in the type of attacks, where before it was more often reflection or amplification attacks. We see more and more direct path attacks due to higher bandwidth available on the attacked systems and on server hardwares, on attacks driven out of data centers. So just to remind you that if you haven't been targeted by such an attack up to today, that shouldn't give you a feeling of comfort. We are all still exposed to this kind of attacks, and as Michel said it in the introduction, the fact that a war has changed the overall political landscape may also have some impact on this. So as a conclusion, what we can say is you should prepare a playbook of best practices to cope with those situations. Which brings me to the TLNDIS cybersecurity services. And when we speak about the playbook, the first and main goal would be to establish governance, to make an analysis of the risks, and to act and to be compliant. When we speak about this, the main goal is to have in place a response team who may act immediately upon an attack and who knows who to contact, what to do, and who takes actions. So the GRC is a very important part of the overall governance and playbook of your security. And this is a part of the TLNDIS cybersecurity services that we may propose. So we are in the preventive part of security services, in the reactive part, but the scope that TLNDIS can propose today is much bigger, as you can see in the slide with the complete cybersecurity offering. But let's get back to the topic of the day, where we speak about DDoS. And just as an introduction to our DDoS protection services, from the view of a telco operator, a brief introduction on our ISP platform, an ISP platform which provides to the enterprise customers internet access solutions and IP transit solutions, ranging from 10 megs to 10 gigs, or even if we speak about IP transit, to a higher bandwidth. As you can see in this slide, we are connected to a number of tier 1 providers to connect yourself to the internet, the global internet. And we have a quite huge capacity on our infrastructure today. To protect this infrastructure and to protect our customers, we have introduced the DDoS clean pipe protection services, which are running on our AS system, and which is a solution as an always-on monitoring solution. If you subscribe to this service, there is immediate activation upon subscription. We let the system run during a to be determined period to learn your traffic patterns and what's normally going on your infrastructure. That might be some days, might go to several weeks to have a clear understanding on what's going on your network. And after this, we set up a workshop together with the customer to define the mitigation templates. Mitigation template means that we are going to define the actions that we are going to apply in case of an attack. This can be done in an automatic or in an on-demand mitigation mechanism, where we can prepare this and only activate them on request, or where we can have them automatically be triggered when an attack is happening. To complete our service, we do regular reviews of that template, be annual or on customer demand, because it might be that your environment is going to change. And it is quite important that the protection mechanisms that you have in place will cope with these new situations. And besides, this is the protection that we have on our own AS, and we can also provide upstream mitigation solutions in case of where we connect to mitigation and scrubbing centers outside our network to cope with bigger attacks. If we have a look at the building blocks of the solution, we have, as already mentioned before in other solutions, the flow collector part, which is doing sampling of the traffic and which is going to see what's going on and can, in case of an attack, of an identified attack, send the traffic to the scrubbing center, where we can do the automatic detection and mitigation. The information our systems get are from Arbor, from NetScout Arbor, which is a global system where we have an Atlas intelligence feed, which gives us information on which kind of attacks are seen in the world and which systems are compromised, so that we can quickly act upon those as well. This is a solution as running in our backbone. We can push this to the entrance of the customer system, to your enterprise entry point, by installing an edge defense system, which will communicate globally with the system and so can work together with the overall protection schemes which are in place. So what's going to happen during our protection service? It's about detection, about notification, mitigation, and reporting. So we heard before that the trigger rates will be some minutes. We speak about 3 to 4 minutes to understand what's going on. When some trigger rates are exceeded, the mechanism pops in depending on the severity rate, and then an automatic mitigation may be activated as defined by the predefined mitigation templates. It's only the targeted IPs which will be routed to the scrubbing center. So that's for latency and efficiency reasons. And then we have that information with the filters and possibilities that we have from the Atlas intelligence feed. Two possibilities. During the attack, we are flexible enough to act as a SOC and be able to add additional mitigation countermeasures. That's something, if the customer wants to, we are still always available to do this and to do some fine tuning on the protection mechanisms. It's quite important that you see what's going on and what happened during attack. Therefore, you have regular reporting on the installation and also reports after mitigation. This comes with our web portal. Web portal for the reporting, which gives you overall view on what's going on your internet connection. So you will get information on the traffic, on protocol usage, on destination and source addresses, so that you see what's going on and what's happening. When alerts are popping up, you see what type of alerts they are, so that we can commonly act upon it. And after mitigation, we will have reports on to see exactly what happened and how the mitigation methods worked for that case. So, but beside the DDoS protection solutions, we can also touch a word on perhaps what is called the next generation internet, which should be more reliable and secure. When we speak about internet connectivity in general, we know that the advantages are the access to a big network with the BGP advantages of being very flexible. It's effective, it's cheap, but it has also these advantages of being insecure, of being unreliable, being vulnerable to attacks. If a company needs to establish connectivity between multiple sites, another solution could be the MPLS solution, which is often used in that cases, which is optimized for speed, for privacy, for quality of service, but has the disadvantages of being expensive, of being not available everywhere. A new way of thinking about it might be the CIAN solution. CIAN stands for scalability, control, and isolated domains. So let me just give you a small word on what it is and how we are positioned with this. As Telenus, we are today the first partner in Luxembourg connected to the CIAN network in the world. We have 2 nodes running in our main data centers and being connected to the international footprint. So what is it? CIAN is a path-aware interdomain routing network. Typically, or to put it simple, It's the user who defines the path the packets are going to use. And the user can define this based on latency, on bandwidth, on jitter, and on geographical jurisdictions. Networks are isolated, and by the fact that they are isolated and only with trusted partners in the network, they are immune to some kinds of DDoS attacks. The way to establish those inter-domain routing is done via encrypted network path information, which allows to swap quickly a route or a path in case of attack. That brings us to the why is Cyan DDoS resistant? Because simply it's a multipathing architecture where you can quickly change the direction if you see that one path is blocked through DDoS attack. And due to the nature of the protocol, source authentication is done so that reflector type of attacks are not possible on that kind of infrastructure. So if you are interested in getting more information on this technology, we will be available to discuss this. To wrap up the presentation, so we can talk about this next generation internet if you're interested in. Important and major points are also that THIELEMANS, through our cybersecurity services, may help you getting the 360 security support services view that you need to protect your company. As stated earlier, we are today in that department close to 100 people providing services to the local market. And if you want to have a quick and effective protection against DDoS attacks, our DDoS clean pipe protection services are available, and we can activate them quickly and on demand. So Michel, that's it for my part. I remain available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilles. Thanks for this very interesting view on the THIELEMANS Proximus services, also for explaining the difference between the two names.
Yeah.
And especially, I like the introduction of Cyan as a new way to route traffic. That's good that we see that even in Luxembourg, people are interested, or companies are going into this new way of working things.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Looking at the questions, I don't see any. Reminder to all the participants, don't hesitate to ask the questions in the Q&A pane. Or even afterwards, if you have a topic that you want us to discuss. Otherwise, you will have all the information also for the presenters in the information we will send after the workshop. And with that, let me hand over to the last speaker for today. The last session is going to take a slightly broader look at your cybersecurity setup. Olivier Devy of Radware will explain how you make sure that your DDoS defenses don't DOS yourself, i.e. making sure security doesn't impact your new digital way of working. Olivier, stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, I'm going to take a little step back and then taking 2 steps forward to give you an insight on what we see as a company in the world of the DDoS and beyond. So my name is Olivier Devis. I'm running the Benelux for Radware. And so what I'm going to talk you through is first give you an insight who we are and what we are doing. So for those who know the DDoS, what the history is about, well, to give you an insight, 1999 in August, that's when the first DDoS was reported at Minnesota University, and we actually launched in 1999 in September, 1 month after. So Radware is on the NASDAQ since 1999, and we have a couple of customers. Also, we're recognized by the analysts and our partners, which we do OEM with, Cisco, Checkpoint, Nokia, Azure, AWS, that we work with also. So what I'm going to talk you through is what we do see as a company. So there's actually 4 pillars which we see. Is in the first place what you see also in the news, growing threat landscape. So every analyst will give that, and also people that are reacting towards it. and also the technologies that are developed for that one. And then we see companies moving to a digital transformation. Think about also the period that we just have had to face all with the COVID, how that also accelerated certain things, adoptions. And also in line with that is the third one, the cloud transition. And it's also giving its threats, uncertainties that it also provides. And the fourth one is where do we go in the future with the application modernization? So walking through that, with the DDoS, which is existing already for 24 years, and DOS itself is almost 50 years that it exists. But we do see that it's increasing all the time. And we have to build defenses again for it, and they become more complex, they become multiple types, and so we have to take care of that. We see that there is a move from the DDoS attacks towards also they aim more and more the applications itself attacks, so the layer 7s, which we saw also definitely an increase. And then we see also the development that they're aiming towards the cloud, and that the assets that are moving towards the cloud, think about Kubernetes developments and all of these things, and that also they will also go over there. It also presents a couple of challenges that we might not yet be aware of, but that I'm going to share also with you. But one thing is for sure is that when you want to have a good security, you have to look at all the angles to provide a state-of-the-art security. So when I talk about the intensity, the attack intensity growing, we do see that in the news all the time. This is just a snapshot for what we've seen on our networks, is that definitely there's an increase. But when you look at, for example, the bots, compared to the other type of attacks, we see that there's definitely increase, 197% web application attacks, which we also see that definitely increase. We see the DDoS also growing, but not as fast as the other ones. We do not believe that they will slow down because it's cheap and it's very efficient to launch one. So that's why we will continue to see that. These are a couple of cases which we have analyzed and which we also can find on the internet. A couple of things. So Capital One, for example, what does that do? So we see that there was a server-side request forgery that happens. But one of these things behind the scenes is that also it did make a change into the finance world also for the US. Because one of the things is that the US bank regulator demanded an $80 million fine, a penalty that they had to pay because of all these records. The Volkswagen was something similar. That was with an Azure breach. 3.3 million records were taken. That was in the US. We see in the bots, those that we might recognize is maybe Facebook, that the scraping of the information that happened, and it was also put on the network for sale. API use abuse, we see also with Venno and SolarWinds. Well, SolarWinds with $100 billion in damages, you would think like, which company has that kind of money? But it's because 18,000 companies were infected. And when you combine all of that, we do see that there's an issue. And when you look at all these companies, these are companies that usually have very good security measures in place. And yet still, we see that hackers and others find ways into hacking into the system. And here's another one. This is more like for the pure cloud, where a lot of companies move towards for various reasons, is that we also see here records that are exposed. And interestingly enough, is that, for example, for Twitch is also owned by Amazon. So we do see that also these companies have struggles also sometimes. The cryptocurrency, the Google that was also there hacked for installing some software to use the crypto mining facilities. So they're moving towards that. And what we see is that the digital transformation, the working from home, online consumption of goods. I think if I would ask any of you that, did you work more from home? Probably the answer is yes. And did you shop more from home? Most people would say yes. So we see that the applications become at the center of the business, and companies are moving towards that. Even companies that said that previously, now that the COVID is done, we're going to go back to the office. We do see a wave where people will go maybe a couple of days a week but not again 5 days. We do see that there is a change, and companies have to act upon that and develop actually strategies that allows them to the time to market and agility that are also critical, and they have to develop in that way. And what we see is that the security should not be a blocker, and what we need a frictionless security that does not hold you back. And why is that? Because it proves to be not easy. And for example, when you look at the environments, you come from on-premise applications, your assets, you move some certain assets to an Azure, Google, Amazon, whatever environment. It brings out that you have other security systems that you have to take care of. And sometimes your teams cannot deal with all of them. It even makes sometimes a move from one area to another. And then the public clouds get more exposed to new threats because that's another type of workflows that we develop. And what you want is actually a consistent security across all clouds, not different things. Because what we have is that in the hacking world, and those that really target you as a target you, they will find some loopholes, and that's what they looking into. And having all these different systems, the chances increase that they are. And talking about the application modernization, so we see that for many reasons, we see development of applications going very quickly in the Kubernetes environment, the microservices that are coming up. But that also allows you actually to open doors in other areas, which you also want to close. So you do not want any of these initiatives to block your business to move forward. And that's why also the CISO, when we inquire as a CISO, we do so yearly a review, and when we ask them what they need, well, they will tell you, I want the best protection because I want to protect my assets, I want to protect the company, I want the highest SLAs and all of these things, which is normal. But on the other hand, it must be also frictionless because the business wants to move forwards and development teams are developing assets in the cloud and new websites, other things, and they want to move forward and they want to acquire companies or change companies. And sometimes it also brings a blocker, and that even between these two business units, it can sometimes cause some frictions. And so you shouldn't have to choose, and you should have something that really across everything that allows you to move forward. So what did we develop for these things? Is that we're looking at two ways. In the first place, you look at the surface. This is what we've been talking about this morning, what a lot of colleagues have been talking about. Protection against DDoS, but also protection against the application attacks, the through WAFs and everything, the bot attacks, the API attacks, and all of these things. That's what you can do on the surface, and the infrastructure and the backbone. That's where you also want to protect your cloud workflows. So that's also, and all of these things must be central in one system so that you can have a good seamless protection that allows you to move forward. And so what did we develop? And so it's not that since 1999 that we launched on the NASDAQ that we have started DDoS. That came a couple of years later. We started to develop that, and one of these things that we developed is behavior analysis that goes extremely far. And we have a patented technology in these things, and that allows you not that when there are attacks coming up and filling your pipe and blocking your websites. No, we will literally pick out the good users from the bad users. And so that's also with the technology that we do with a real-time signature that goes very fast, and within seconds we create protection against new type of attacks. Seamlessly integrating also with the application protection. So we can also discover like what kind of patterns there are. And so also, for example, auto discovery of APIs. We can do that as well. And then also the workflows that through cloud native protection that we can also protect. And what we do is we combine it all into one solution. You can have it separate, but we also do it in a multi-layered approach. And so how do we do that? We do it because we are agnostic. So no matter what protection you have, is it DDoS for the cloud or for on the premise or whatever assets where they are, we're going as agnostic. It's uniform that allows you also to simplify your approach. It's across all clouds. It doesn't matter. And also the adaptive automated is fully integrated. So in that aspect also, you can also still have the freedom to do however you want it. But the idea is also that when you have such a complex environments, that things are as automated as possible. And of course, we keep it flexible. We can go virtual, as managed service, as physical, as how you want it. We have machines that can, one appliance can take up 1 terabit that can cover these attacks. And then next to that, we have plenty of the scrubbing centers worldwide. So that is where, basically in a very nutshell, as a company, as a vendor, which we see that the world is going. And for those who wants to have more insights into the threat analysis, there's a yearly report that I'm glad you can provide you as well. So I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Olivier, for this presentation. Thank you for giving Radware's view on current DDoS trends. Okay, I'm looking for any questions, if there are any. I don't see questions for now. If anybody wants to ask a question by voice, please raise your hand and we can unmute your microphone. If that's not the case, or waiting for somebody to decide, let me already extend a big thank you to our 5 presenters of this morning. Thank you for taking the time to give us your insights on the topic of DOS and DDoS. So I'm continuing looking for any questions if there are. I don't see any. So here we have Oktay. Let me unmute you. There you are. You can ask your question.
So this is Oktay from EIB. First of all, thanks for the nice presentations from everyone, all the panelists. I have just one quick question. Generally, as a best practice, specifically for the layer 7 DDoS attacks, because I mean, generally we think that we are protected by our service providers for the layer 4 DDoS attacks, but maybe some of them also still provide this protection as well. But what is the best practice for the layer 7 DDoS attacks? Having the protection on the customer side, like, I don't know, the web application firewalls we use, or do we still require some protection on the service provider side for these specific attacks, which can maybe still impact us even if we have the protection on our side? Thank you.
I'm handing the question over to our presenters. Does any of you want to answer Oktay's question here?
Essentially, both are possible. So, but they have, each of them have their own advantage. Let's say, mainly speaking, if you have an inline device at premise, at that moment, the attack time can be very short, but the hacker has the possibility to find out that you're protected while he's still small testing your vulnerabilities. On the other end, at the moment you have a big attack, bigger than the pipe or the port on your box, this will not work and all of your traffic will be blocked. On the other end, in the cloud-based systems, essentially, once the volume hits great, the cloud-based providers have multiple hardware devices in their as a service network, and at any edge point of their network, they are capable of cleaning part of the traffic in that area of the world in order to protect better the volumetric attacks. But this has the disadvantage that the bigger volume attacks will not see the smaller testing attacks. Is that the correct answer to your question, Oktay?
Okay, so
I wasn't able to unmute myself. Yeah, okay, thanks, man. It makes sense. Also, I mean, from, of course, the, let's say, the performance perspective, it might be better to have some protection also on the service provider or the cloud side. But then the visibility is also a concern. To see these attacks or these things might be a little bit more challenging to see on our side if we don't have the visibility there. But yeah, I mean, I understand your comment. Thanks.
Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. So there was a question in the Q&A if this will be recorded. Yes, all the presentations have been recorded and the recording will be shared. We will send the email out slightly after the workshop, and this thank you email will contain the link to the YouTube channel and also all the other information. Okay, and if there are no other questions, I think there are none. Otherwise, please yell at me because I've now lost the view on the Q&A pane. Nobody's yelling at me, so I suppose there are no questions. If there are any, please do not hesitate to contact the speakers. You will get all the details in the thank you email that we will send out. Let me also remind you again that the upcoming Luxembourg Internet Days of this year to be happening on November 15 and 16, normally physically at the Chambre of Commerce. There we will have the second day dedicated to the topic of DOS and DDoS. We are currently building the program, but to look forward to a very interesting and filled program with lots of interesting topics and presentations, some of them going also into more technical details. Then again, thank you very, very much for the over 80 participants that were in the workshop this morning. We think this is a huge success. So thank you for confirming that the topic is of interest to you. Thank you for attending. Also, thanks from the presenters to all of you for being here and for participating. Good. With that said, I think we are at the end of this morning's workshop. So again, thank you very much to all of you. Thanks to my colleagues at LU-CIX for organizing this. I was just the guy standing here and talking, but our team organized it all. Thank you to the presenters again. Thank you to all the participants, and see you again next time. Thanks and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.